Hello everybody, welcome to a winter/fallish day in New York City. Thought today I'd just kind of talk about all the books I read in August and September of this year. Sort of talk about my reviews of them. And now I do have a Goodreads page, which is kind of what I use to categorize all my books and remember what I was reading, because I do read quite a few books. So I'll kind of get into it. So the first book I read in August was All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. And this book was centered around a marriage. I like a lot of marriage stories. I find them very interesting, like how domestic relations are. I just think it's a fascinating subject. And this book was about Quinn and her husband and how they kind of went through a rough patch, and kind of chronicles their relationship from the first time they met and sort of the little things that added up along the way that put them on the verge of a divorce. And I thought it was pretty realistic. I thought the way that the two characters' alternative narratives were presented were realistic. And although a lot of people rated this one as pretty depressing, I thought it was more realism, and it wasn't just like a feel-good teenage/college love romance. There's a saying that goes that books and movies and films and whatever always focus on the beginning and the end of a relationship, but it's staying that relationship that is even more important, some may argue. So I gave this book a 4 to 5 stars. I thought it was one of Colleen Hoover's stronger books and narratives that have a little bit more substance to them than her other ones. Not to say Colleen Hoover is a different story for sure. And then I read this book, which took me many weeks to go through because I had to go through this so slowly. I read this in India, and I really wasn't on my phone that much in India. So I was just devouring this book. And I don't even think I have it with me. It might be at my house, but it's called A Little Life. And people had warned me about this one because of how traumatic this book is. About every trigger warning in the book is used for this one because it chronicles June and his relationship with his childhood trauma that just sort of adds up. And it's about, like, I want to say 1,000 pages. It is probably the longest book other than Crossroads that I've ever read. While at some points I wanted to give up on this book because there's not one second where this man was happy. Like, not one single paragraph in those 1,000 pages. This man was having a good time. And the minute he had a good time, it was ripped away from him again. So this book you have to kind of, it's a slow, like, you have to read this slowly. No matter if you think you're mentally fine or not, like, this is a book you need to read slowly. And in my personal opinion, the payoff is good. Like, after you read this book, you know you're never going to read any other book like this ever again. This book is going to be, like, permeated into one of the top 10 books you'll ever read in your life because of how transformative it is and how it makes you feel and how it changes you and how it hooks you in. But it's not like a thriller or like a psychological book where it's the author writes it for you to read it in one sitting. It's a read that you have to kind of sit through, and you have to kind of sit through that journey with him. So I think I don't want to say enjoyed it because it's a book all about trauma, but it was so well written and immersive that I'd give that book a 5 out of 5. 5 stars out of 5 stars. And then after that, I needed something, like, I really needed something lighter, but I did not read something lighter after that. I read I'm Glad Your Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, who, if you guys don't know, is an actress on iCarly. And I was just kind of in a mood for a memoir at that point, or like a shorter book, because after 800 to 1,000 pages, I needed something I could finish within a couple of days. So I read her book, and I never want to rate memoirs because this memoir specifically was about also trauma, LOL. But I think that it was very well written. I read it in one day. And I think it's a pretty realistic portrayal about how child or mother-daughter relationships can be that toxic. And I don't really see a lot of that in memoirs or in nonfiction narratives or books. So I thought I would recommend that one for sure. It kind of chronicles her life through being a child actress and how that affected her later on in life. I've always said that I really just don't think that child actors or child workers, I don't think it's fair to them, to be honest. I think it's more at that point a parents thing, because even I did like acting classes when I was younger. When I was 13, I did like a handful of acting classes with a company who is based out in LA and had like a lot of Disney Channel celebrities and everything like that. And I used to beg my parents to let me move to LA and do all that. But I realize now what a gift it was that I didn't do all of that, or it even took a step farther than just taking classes because of what I would have missed out on, just like growing up. So That's a little bit of a tangent for a different story time, but for sure. And then I read Maybe in a Different Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I read Taylor Jenkins Reid's books because I really, really, really liked Malibu Rising, which I read last year at some point, or maybe the year before that. I'm not really sure. I read that book in one day. I loved Malibu Rising. So this book was definitely a different vibe. You can see how she kind of changed as a writer within this year and last year versus her earlier work. So there's a shift in how she wrote and the pacing at which she wrote things at. So this is I think this is a slower pace. But I read this one on the plane back to the United States, and I thought it was pretty well written. A couple of chapters is about, there's two like timelines, and one timeline is where she's with one person, one timeline is when she's with her high school love, and sort of how things play up and how like little moments kind of change the direction of the entire timeline that she shows, which I thought was a very interesting concept. It could have been executed more better, but I thought the timelines of having a couple of different moments that kind of just strayed two timelines versus where she ended up with two different people like this way out, and then at the end they kind of come together in different ways. I don't want to spoil it too much, but I thought it was a pretty good read if you want something more lighter and just like an easy romance read. So I like that. And then I read probably the best book I read in these 2 months, which is Tell Me Lies, which is a Hulu show that I've been watching and that I really, really like. If you like Normal People on Hulu, or if you read the book, it's sort of like that vibe. Obviously American, not Scottish this time. But, oh wait, no, it was Irish. My bad. Irish. But it's about a college relationship that is toxic, but that's just like one level of it. It's so multi-layered, and how each of these characters had their own traumas. And it is the most realistic portrayal of a toxic college relationship that I've ever seen in any book I've ever read. Before I've been in college and now that I've been in college and been through my own experiences. So I would highly, highly recommend this book, and read the book before you watch the show is what I always say. So I don't want to spoil it too much besides that, but I gave that one a 5 out of 5 stars. It was probably the best book I read in these 2 months. And then the last book I read that I just finished was Magnolia Parks. And this, I'm not reading this for pure literature. Like, this book was not this book is going to change me, or like a little life book. It was truly like just a fun read. And I did not like it that much, to be honest with you. It again was another young romance novel about Magnolia Parks, who lives in London and is in high class society, and her relationship with, what's his name? Sorry guys, I completely forgot the other protagonist's name. His name is BJ Valentine. It's Magnolia Parks and BJ Valentine. And I thought this book was just like, it was not that immersive. I wasn't invested in the characters that much. I couldn't empathize with them. So for that reason, I gave this probably like a 2 out of 5 or something like that, because it wasn't that great. But if you want something just a fun upper class romance society, like a romance that's based in high class London society, then this book might be what you're looking for. But that's about it, guys. Thank you guys so much, and stay tuned for October.